When you really start to set those big goals and you focus on those big goals and you have a healthy obsession with those big goals, that's when things start to change. Like I said, you might not hit that goal in the time frame you want, but if you focus on it, you will eventually hit it.
That's the key, is the focus, right?
Yeah.
Obsession is the right word too. There's something about driving towards something that's not real that in some weird way makes it real, and the universe rewards that momentum. We have some weird ability to create for ourselves the future that we see, but we have to see it and drive towards it.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. The problem is a lack of vision.
Hello and welcome. This is Self-Control, How to Build a Better Life, the podcast that inspires you to take control of your mind and your mindset to go forward and build a life that you want to live. My name is Patrick Strevens, and this podcast is something of a journey. It's chronicling my journey to peace of mind, and I hope that it'll be a part of yours as well. This show will offer thought processes, hacks, if you will, tips, tricks, behaviors that I've used to inch myself towards a better life every day, and more importantly, speaking with guests who are in some respects, hopefully and surely, much further down the road to a better life than me. And that continues today. This is part one of my conversation with Vic Pipke. Vic is currently working as an independent financial broker, but it didn't start that way. Vic was a police officer for many, many years. In fact, for over a decade, he was a member of the Edmonton Police Force SWAT team. But when a terrible, not tragic, but a terrible, unforeseeable injury ended Vic's policing career, he was forced to make a transformation. And now he works as, like I said, an independent financial broker through World Financial Group. And yes, I said it, World Financial Group. And Vic speaks very openly, very frankly about his work with World Financial. And he addresses the bad press that exists around that organization, although it seems to work very, very well for very many people. So he sets the record straight, at least in his eyes, on that one. But part one of this episode that you're about to see today, I should say part one of this conversation, jam-packed with, I would say, inspirational stuff, but also actionable stuff that you can put to work now as far as how you're thinking and what you're doing. Vic is a guy who step one, when he meets a new client, he challenges them to dream and to set goals. And I think that needs to be a huge part of my life for sure as I inch toward better, and perhaps yours as well. I mean, the importance of dreaming, having these wild fantasies that we'd like to fulfill someday may be possible if we're willing to back engineer, as Vic says, the goals that we would need to achieve to get to that dream state. And we may not achieve the dream, but by achieving all those goals along the way, surely a better life would lie in the cards for us. So really, we spoke a lot about the importance of dreaming and the importance of setting goals. Two things at the end of this conversation that we touched on that I would really love for you to pay attention to and to take home and to make yours: time management and scheduling, as well as a morning routine. So those were two or three things that Vic and I really vibed on at the end, and they're two things that I'm going to speak on in a follow-up episode to this one. We'll hash out a little bit more about Vic's approach to scheduling, as well as my own, and the importance of the sometimes maligned, maybe misunderstood, a little bit cliche morning routine, but there's a deep importance to that Vic speaks on at the end. So I'm going to get out of the way. Please enjoy this one. I should say there's also some tidbits of like practical financial advice from Vic as far as how you can get control of your financial situation today or this week and start improving. So with all that said, please enjoy this one. It's jam-packed. Maybe take some notes or else sit back and enjoy it. A man who has seen a lot, he's done a lot, he's become a whole hell of a lot. This is part one of my conversation with Mr. Vic Pipke. All right, Vic, thanks for having me into your office and for making the time to do this. I've been looking forward to it for months, actually. So,
yeah, thanks so much. I feel very privileged to be sharing a little bit of time with you here today.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. It is, and it is the privilege when we can sit down in the middle of the day on a Wednesday or Thursday and just do the things that we talk about what we love to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I like to always take it back to when we first sort of crossed paths, which was an interesting moment on Instagram. You had a post about, I believe you brought your daughter in to do some work, and she said, why don't they teach this sort of financial literacy stuff in school?
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, is like, here's a guy who's maybe aware of
what it takes. We can't depend on institutions, let's say, to always do things for us, and it's incumbent on us as individuals to maybe take the lead on some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very good point. I think a lot of times we, in general, we will pass off that responsibility to someone because we're busy. And I mean, let's face it, everyone's busy right now, right?
Sure.
The world's a crazy place right now. And anytime we can get somebody else to look after something for us, that's a benefit, especially if it's not going to be, of any sort of strain monetarily.
Right.
The challenge, though, comes in is who are you listening to?
Right.
Right? Who are you listening to? And the internet is a great thing. Technology is a great thing when it's used properly. The problem is there's so much misinformation out in the world right now that how do you vet what it is you're listening to? Right. I kind of think of it in the terms of, if I had appendicitis, would I go to the barber? Right? No, I would go to a doctor who specializes in appendectomies. Right. So I think it's very important to vet your sources and look at the experts in the field that you're trying to, and not necessarily maybe an anonymous post or some sort of criticism on the internet from an unqualified amateur that maybe doesn't fully understand what they're talking about.
Right.
Just so you can make better decisions for yourself, which is kind of what we do.
Right. And in the financial, it's what you do, of course. So in the financial world, there's a lot of that because it pulls on people's deepest desires to be free, to be wealthy, to be successful. What is it that you do that makes you an expert? What is it that you would say that I'm a source that when you vet me, I'm who you would want to talk to?
That's a really good question. I mean, obviously, like my background is in law enforcement, right? So I'm a retired police officer. I had a great career, I was very fortunate to perform, my career at a very high level for a very long time. I was with the tactical team, or better known as the SWAT team, for almost 12 years.
Wow.
And the thing was, it was the job I loved to do. Absolutely loved it, until life happened, right? And I suffered a significant injury, a life-threatening injury that the doctors really said, we have no idea how you survived.
Wow.
That injury. There's no medical explanation for it. But what it did is it took me out of the role that I was passionate about, the way that I felt I was able to serve at the highest level, and it relinquished me to a role within the police service that I just was not fulfilled in doing.
Okay.
So I started looking for a new career, and what brought me into the financial field was a suggestion from my financial advisor. And my first thought to him was, I blow stuff up for a living. So I'm really not sure how many transferable skills I have. Right. But it got me to thinking about what skills I do have that could be transferable. People skills, leadership skills, investigative skills, not making rash decisions based on partial information, right?
Okay.
There's a difference between information and intelligence.
Yes.
Information is just a whole bunch of random numbers and words, right? It becomes intelligence when it's proven, reliable, and complete.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So being able to think, logically, under pressure, that sort of stuff obviously serves me well here. Although I don't nearly have as much pressure here as I did before. But that whole idea of, when I was looking at the transferable skills I might have, it also led me to think about what I did as a police officer. And I started to really think about all of the things that I did, the things I responded to, and I realized that the foundation of almost all crime, almost all social disorder comes down to money trouble.
I believe it. Yeah.
And it's even things you don't think about, right? The vast majority of calls that police officers respond to are calls of a domestic nature. And when you sit down with those families that are arguing and fighting, and sometimes it escalates to even worse. Sure. When you really talk to them, one of the fundamental problems is financial stuff that's causing the stress, which then leads into the domestic disputes, and even things like that. So when you really think about it, as a police officer, I responded to the output of what was happening, and I started thinking, if I just change my focus, And I started to think about solving the problem that caused the crime and social disorder, the underlying money struggles that everyone is having, or the majority of Canadians are having. I'd actually serve people at a significantly higher level.
Huh. You'd start the problem. You'd sort of stop the problem before it started, so to speak.
Exactly.
Interesting. So, the sort of, I guess, the ethic of this show, the philosophy, is helping people who listen build a better life. So, let's say right now, someone looks at their finances. It's a mess, or it's leading to these sort of problems that you see. I could see myself going down a dark road because my money is not working for me, or I don't have enough of it. Is there one simple thing or one single thing you point to first? Or is it a process, or what is kind of the easiest thing someone could do right now to sort of improve that situation?
Yeah. I don't like pigeonholing people or being judgmental or anything like that. And I think there's too much of that in our industry already, where the financial industry typically traditionally is based on selling financial products, right? They're companies. They need to, their number one job of a company is to stay in business.
Sure.
Right? And so they have to go out and distribute their product or service. I think sometimes the struggle is that because certain institutions, especially larger institutions, are so busy, they don't have the time to spend to really learn individual factors that are important to each person. So you end up getting cookie cutter solutions.
Right.
So instead of doing that, what we do is, number one, our service that we distribute is information. We don't have anything to sell. We're an independent, full-service brokerage. So we do just about everything that touches a person's financial life. Anything you can think of that has a money sign beside it, we can probably help with.
Okay.
On the other side, we're completely independent, which means we don't own any products. So we have no bias to any company, any corporation, or any shareholder. And we don't also have a limitation that certain institutions might have, where, let's say you go to a blue bank or the green bank, they can only offer blue and green products. Right? We have a massive shelf of products and services because everyone's unique. And everyone deserves a unique solution.
Gotcha.
Because what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So why would, because I answered 5 questions on a piece of paper, it says I get plan C? Okay, well, maybe all of plan C doesn't work for me. Right. I want a little bit of plan A and plan B, and maybe throw some D in there as well. Right? Where we can look at everything and we can put those individual plans together. So when we're talking about like the more simplistic things, I mean, obvious things are have a budget. Right? I know it's probably not the most fun thing for people to do on a Friday is sit down and do your budget. But it's important to have one. But the biggest thing, I think, is take personal responsibility. Understand that there's no government on this planet that has more impact on your life than you. Right?
That's a great way to put it.
That's in finance and that's in life. And it's discouraging sometimes when I see people like, oh, the government this and this guy here and this guy there did this and this government's doing this and all that. You know what? There's really no government in history of the world that really did anything that significantly impacted individuals' lives day to day more than those individuals could do themselves. Hey,
that's a quote right there. And I think you're right. And it goes back to where we started 10 minutes ago, is like a lot of institutions, they don't have every individual's best outcome in mind. It's sort of a blanket or a cookie cutter, like you say, and personal responsibility has to be. So make a budget. Don't be afraid to sit down and think about the money coming in and going out. Those are great steps. Anything maybe to wrap that up?
Well, and then talk to somebody that you've built a trust with, built a relationship with.
Right.
Probably 90% of our business is building relationships with people.
Sure.
Right? Because I don't know you, but I'm going to come into your living room and I'm going to tell you what to do as a plan to try and achieve your goals and dreams. Right? I don't think that happens a lot anywhere else, whether it's in the financial institutions. I don't think it happens in your job, right? There's no one walking around asking people, hey, if time and money were of no consequence, what would you be doing and or purchasing right now, right? And I think that's important because I think over our lifetime, we get conditioned to limit our dreams to be realistic.
Sure.
And when you're a child, you dream dreams, right? You want to be a space cowboy, or you want to be a ballerina with a unicorn, or whatever. You're a ballerina in space. Like I don't know, but it could be anything, right?
Could be.
And then life beats us up, and we start to listen to people who most likely have our best interest at heart, our parents, our close friends, our family.
Right.
But because of the things that they've learned, they start to unwittingly reduce our capacity to dream and to set big goals.
That's absolutely right. It's so then do you encourage people to obviously be realistic, but also to keep that dreaming part alive, to see a better future?
Absolutely. I mean, you need realistic goals for day-to-day activities that are going to get you to those bigger dreams, right? So I differentiate dreams and goals. The dream is the end result that you're seeking. The goals are the small incremental steps you need to achieve to reach that dream.
Gotcha.
Right? That's kind of the way I think of it. But there's obvious things that you want to set realistic goals for, but you also want to set goals that are going to stretch your thinking and stretch your abilities. And I think sometimes the reason people don't set goals is because they want to say, well, what if I don't hit that goal? I'm going to feel bad. Or if I tell someone else what that goal is and I don't hit it, now I'm going to feel foolish. Or someone's not going to understand what my goal and dream is because maybe they just don't think as big as I do.
Right.
There's all these other things, right? People need to realize that, it's not hitting the goal at the time frame that you hit it. As long as you hit it. But if you set a time frame, you're more likely to hit it sooner than later.
Yeah, because there's that fire under your ass, so to speak.
It's like, hey, you know what? I want to do 100 push-ups in 30 seconds, and I want to do it in a month. Well, that's a short period of time. I'm going to have to work out really hard every day to get that done.
Right.
But if instead of a month I did it in 40 days, I still achieved my goal.
Exactly.
It just took me a little bit longer.
Right. And the time is relative, right?
Exactly. So don't be afraid of it.
Right.
But set the goal.
Set the goal.
And make it a big goal. We were just in California last week, and we were with one of the founders of our organization.
Okay.
And it was 3 days with like some of the biggest and best leaders in the financial industry in all of North America. And we did a whole bunch of exercises. One of them was to make a list of your top 25 goals and dreams.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was like big goals. And so, I mean, some of them are like fantasy goals of mine. Like, I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan. I want to own the Miami Dolphins. Right?
Nice.
I want a private jet.
Okay.
Right? So that I'm not limited when I fly, where I fly, time frames, but also so I can do that in comfort. So people like my mom, who are really, it's uncomfortable for her to fly at this time in her life.
Sure.
Now she can still see the world, right? So really big dreams. But one of them was, by the time I leave this earth, I want to leave a legacy of $100 million net worth.
Wow.
I think that's a pretty awesome legacy to leave your grandkids, great-grandkids, furthermore, right?
Yes.
And then we did another exercise where we looked at where our business is now, and we said, hey, look, what if you just had small incremental growth for the next 25 years? Where would you be?
Okay.
And so we did that exercise. And then we had one of the participants in the class come up to share his results. And he said, I took it an extra step. I said, if my business is here today, 25 years from now, even at just 15% growth per year, this is where I would be. Now, if I took that income that I earned over that time and I deduct for taxes, I deduct for living and business expenses, extra expenses, travel, blah, 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 what's left over, I invest, this is what my legacy really would be for my great-grandkids. And so Tana and I, my wife and I, we did the same exercise. And here's where the power of dreaming big is, and where I believe even if you think you're dreaming big, you have no idea how big you can dream.
Okay.
We did that exercise, and with where we are now, 25 years from now, we have a potential to leave $1.5 billion of legacy to our great-grandchildren.
That's with a B.
With a B. A little bit more than $100 million.
A little more.
But when I put that $100 million on that goal sheet, I thought, this is the biggest dream. Like, how am I going to get there? It seemed insurmountable, but now it seems too small.
Wow. Now, what strikes me is like how analytic and how sort of, and I love this. I love goal setting. I love time. Maybe time management is not the right word, but forecasting, let's say, goal
Yeah.
setting, all that stuff, and it turns something on in our brain, right? That dopamine release of like, I see where I'm going now. I'm going. Is that maybe what's I'm not gonna say sets you apart, but is that something you try and impart on people? Is like you have to look at your life from a kind of bird's eye view sometimes and see a path?
Yeah, I think that's something we definitely try and share with all our agents that that are in our agency. That because my goal is to help them achieve their goals, and if I help enough other people achieve their goals, we're going to achieve our goals.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's an external look. It's not internal. Not what can you do for me? What can I do for you? Because I know if I help enough other people, I'll eventually achieve what I want. But from a practical standpoint, I think because people in general, not everyone, but in general, I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of limiting personal beliefs.
Right.
Whether for a number of reasons, maybe it's because they worked at the same job for a long time and it's just comfortable,
Yep.
right? And they're not getting out of their comfort zone anymore, or they have certain situations in their life that have, really been tough for them, and they haven't figured out a way to get past those things. Because
Gotcha.
some people have really rough lives, and life is not fair. It never will be, right? Like Matthew McConaughey says,
Yeah.
it never has been, it never will be. Get used to it, right? But the cool thing is you control how you see your life. So you can choose to look at short-term kind of end of the road, no future type of goals, right? Like I just want to go to work today so that, hey, tomorrow's Friday and it's the weekend. I just want to get to the weekend. My Friday is the day I prepare to accelerate because everyone else is taking the weekend off.
Nice.
And that's where I'm going to separate. That's why I'm going to get to my goals when people who maybe don't think that way are going to struggle a lot harder to get to them, right? And so having those big goals and then being able to look back and back engineer a plan to get to them. Because, there are so many people out there today, scientists even, right? Like Dr. Joe Dispenza, he does some amazing stuff about the physiology and the science around energy and thinking and the way that works. And it's not like new age astrological type of thinking.
Sure.
This is actual science that proves that all of that stuff that maybe 34 years ago we thought was new age mumbo jumbo. No, it's true, but there's a scientific reason to it. And he actually took all that stuff that some people maybe disbelieve, and he proved it, right?
Wow.
And he's got a whole bunch of great books about it. But when you really start to set those big goals and you focus on those big goals, and you have a healthy obsession with those big goals, that's when things start to change. And like I said, you might not hit that goal in the time frame you want, but if you focus on it, you will eventually hit it.
That's the key, is the focus, right?
Yeah.
It's like obsession is the right word too. There's something about driving towards something that's not real that in some weird way makes it real. And I'm not familiar with Dispenza, but you're not the first guy to mention him. And I wonder if there's something he says about the universe rewards that momentum. It's not, I'm not saying it's God, some kind of active creator, but there's something about we have some weird ability to create for ourselves the future that we see, but we have to see it and drive towards it.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. The problem is a lack of vision.
Big time.
People can't see it. And so, and I'll say this, you rewind, 6 years ago before my injury, and I wouldn't be able to comprehend what I'm talking about today. I'd be like, holy crap, who is this guy? Right? Like, what's this mumbo jumbo that he's spewing? Right?
Fair enough.
It's not something that comes easy. It's not something that comes overnight. It's not like I woke up one day and said, I'm just going to think differently today. That's not the way it works. It's a perishable skill. It's like exercising a muscle.
Nice.
If you can go to the gym every day for 20 years, and then if you take 6 months off, wow, look what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Things atrophy, things don't work the way they used to. But with the mindset, it's the exact same thing. It's a process, right? And you need to start thinking and surrounding yourself with great associations, being in the presence of other people. I love that old saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you should find another room.
No doubt. Yeah.
Right? Because when you surround yourself with these amazing associations and these people that just vibrate at a much higher level, and a vibration is just a fancy way of saying an exchange of energy. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And when you're around these people, you start to think differently, right? And
Yes.
you start to evolve the way you think. And as a police officer, my thinking was toxic. And I will say this, and if there's other police officers listening, please don't judge me just yet and wait till I explain what I'm saying. A police officer's mindset is toxic, and it is potentially devastating to him or her and their family.
Okay.
But it's necessary. Because every day when you wake up as a police officer, you have to assume the worst in every human being that you encounter that day, so that you can increase the chances that you get to go home. Now, at the beginning of your career, it starts out as just, you know what, I just don't trust the bad guys that I deal with every day.
Right.
But then it starts to grow into this insidious kind of beast where you think everyone is evil. And I know so many cops that they will say 100% the world is evil. I hate people. I don't like being around people. And that's why most police officers only hang around with other police officers, because we get it, right? We get it. We live the same life.
Interesting.
But when I was able to step away, and that's why, you know, I've said a million times before that my injury that just about killed me, that ended the career that I dreamed about since I was 5 years old, that was a major upset in my life. It was actually the best blessing in my life.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if maybe, do you now, in retrospect, see that as being like mercy or salvation, or not even a word that big, but was it a chance for you to maybe have a new lease on life?
You know what, I've never used those words, but I think you're 100% right. It was. The path I was going down, although it was of great service to a lot of people, it was a great career, it wasn't going to, number one, be healthy for me in the end, but number two, I think everyone has the ability to be great. There's greatness inside of all of us. I don't care where you are right now, what level you're at, whether you're a high performing individual or maybe you're really struggling.
Right.
You have something in you that's great. And this injury allowed me to take the time to work on myself so that I could start thinking differently, because I started to separate from being only around police officers, which meant I started to see the world differently. I was associating with different people, with different mindsets, with different views. And I started to realize that, you know what, the vast majority of people are really amazing. They're really amazing.
That's a hell of a twist, or a change to make, right?
Yeah, it is. And as soon as I started to realize that, man, the world wasn't as dark and really restricting as I thought it was as a police officer, right? I mean, there's still some things I do, like, you know, when I go into public places, I like to sit with my back to the door.
Oh, yeah.
Or my back to the wall facing the door.
Gotcha.
Right? Little things like that probably I may never get out of, which is okay for me, because I'm like, hey, you know what, at least I'm just trying to be safe, right? No big deal. But my outlook when I meet people now is not, how are you going to try and hurt me?
Interesting.
Right?
Now, there's a lot of places I want to go, and I thank you for sharing all this stuff, because I found myself this summer asking myself, as I was reworking the podcast, why do I believe that a better life is possible for me? So it's a question that I want to turn on the guests, and starting with you is like, at what point, why? Why do you feel that an ideal or a better life is even possible when you came from a place where it looked like you were basically in a certain circle of hell almost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Why do I think that? It's more than that. I believe it.
Yeah, okay.
Like, it's more than just thinking. It's more than just a thought or maybe a goal of mine someday. I believe it. I believe that I am meant to do certain things. And what those things are, I probably don't even know yet, right? I just know that my life has taken me on a journey to put me in a position now where I'm thinking a lot different than I was 5 or 6 years ago. And every day is another day of getting better, of improving myself, so I can serve at a higher level, right? And I mean, this business is the financial industry. I think it's a very misunderstood industry. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think typically because people generally they go to an institution for their financial education because they don't teach this stuff in school. Right? Now, the challenge with that is, let's say you go to the blue bank. Well, number one, the blue bank is only going to sell you blue products.
Right.
But the other problem is that because of certain laws and regulations, the blue bank can only talk about this much stuff. But the financial industry and the financial education industry is massive.
Right.
So all this stuff that people are not learning about, that's their blind spots. It's what they don't know that they don't know yet.
Sure.
Right? And just like the blind spot in your car, the blind spot in your financial life is dangerous.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are making serious financial decisions that affect their lives, whether it's to do with their mortgage, their investments, their insurance, their health and dental, tax strategies, budgeting. They're making decisions based on partial information.
Gotcha.
And it's like in the police service what we call actionable intelligence. They're making decisions on information, not actionable intelligence. And so what we focus on is we shine a light on all those blind spots, right? We share with people the information they know to make decisions based on actionable intelligence, not just some snippet of information here or a snippet of information or a blog they saw, or it's, listen, you need all the information so you can make a good decision, and then you tell me what you want to do with this information, and I'll make it happen.
Awesome. And it strikes me that that's not so unlike where you were in life, or even where I was in life 10 years ago, when suddenly you then get the opportunity to see that there's more to life. Suddenly life becomes a lot more, I guess, worth living, because you have the information that tells you, hey, there's a lot more out there that I can do.
Absolutely. And I mean, associating with different people that think differently really stretched my vision, right? Like I talked about that exercise, right? My goal was here, but after we went through another exercise with somebody that had a bigger vision, holy cow, I can leave a significantly bigger legacy to my family, right? I can change my family tree forever. So really it's that, changing your associations. And if there's one thing I could say to people, if you want to change your life, change your environment. Right?
Yeah.
When a plant doesn't grow, we don't blame the plant. We blame the soil, the water, the sun. It's not the plant's fault. So if you're not growing, change your environment. Because, I was watching a podcast the other day, and I think it was Steve Harvey was saying, not everyone comes into your life for the rest of your life. They might have a very finite reason for a season.
Sure.
Right?
But now, in some ways, that's hard for people to accept, maybe, because we, like you were saying earlier, that we want that comfort, we want that guarantee, this is how my life's going to go, but we're made to grow, right? And that's kind of the tricky part is you have to push yourself past what's comfortable to start growing. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that that idea of growth is, it's uncomfortable, and we are very comfort-seeking human beings, and that's where having a vision of your goals and dreams is important, because your goals and dreams have to be bigger than the comfort you're in right now. Be like, hey, if I don't get out of this comfort zone, my kids aren't going to go to the college that they deserve to go to. I'm not going to be able to retire my spouse. I'm not going to be able to retire myself. I'm not going to be able to travel all the places I want to see. I'm not going to be able. And so I do an exercise with people where I ask them about their goals and their dreams.
Okay.
So tell me what all your dreams are. And I don't want you to think about time and money, right? If you had all the money in the world and all the time in the world, what would you want to do with all of that? What would you buy? What would you want to do? Would you want to travel, dream home, dream car, whatever? And then you look at it and you say, okay, how important are these goals to you? Now, some of them are going to be really important. Some will be like, I want to retire my parents. They work way too hard. I want to retire my wife. She works 60 hours a week. I want these things for my family. These are going to be super important. They're going to be emotional. And I say, okay, where you are right now, can you make all that happen? Well, no.
No.
Then would you agree that something has to change? So you said these goals are super important. So how willing are you to get out of your comfort zone to make a change, to make those things happen? And if you're not, maybe we don't know what your real goals are yet.
And is that often the case where they don't really know what they want?
Vast majority of the time, absolutely. And so it's through a process of really digging deep. Okay, what does, I want to make $1 million a year. Okay, well, making $1 million a year is not going to change your life. It's what you're going to be able to do with $1 million a year that's going to change your life. Maybe you're going to be able to donate to charity. You're going to be able to donate to your church, or you're going to be able to help homeless people. You're going to be able to retire people. You're going to be able to travel, provide a lifestyle for your children, whatever it is. So typically, the first few answers aren't the real answers. They're the head answers.
Right. Or what they think they should say, or what someone maybe told them they should.
This sounds good.
Right.
Yeah. I want to solve hunger, world hunger. Yeah. Okay. Next.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, but if they say world hunger, why is that important to you?
Sure. Drill down from there. Obviously,
right?
they're charitable or whatever.
Yeah, right. And a lot of times it comes down to people want to be significant.
So it's an ego thing a lot of the time.
It is, and I mean, ego can be ugly or it can be really, really beautiful.
Big time, yeah.
For the right reasons, right? If you have somebody that wants to be significant in a positive way, that can be a major driving force to getting them out of their comfort zone to achieve their goals, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for me, making, having a legacy of $1 billion plus for my family is one thing. But what is that going to do? It means we're going to be able to open up charities. We're going to be able to help people on a much higher level, right? I say people all the time say, oh, money is evil. I go, that's BS. It's just that you have a bad relationship with money.
Absolutely.
Money just puts a spotlight on your character.
Nice.
If you're a really good person poor, you'll be an amazing person rich. If you're a douchebag poor, you're going to be a bigger idiot when you're rich.
Okay. Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
And so it's people's relationship with money, I think, a lot of times that makes them think small. Or it gives them an excuse to think small.
An excuse to think
I'm not going to say it gives them an excuse.
Right. Which will take the excuse gladly, right? To not have to think too much about it. Oh, I don't understand it.
I don't want to be rich because it's going to change me. I'm going to be an asshole.
Yeah. Well, you might already be.
That's not the thing that's going to make you that way, right? But I like to say, if you have $5, how many people can you help?
Yeah, not even yourself, really.
Right? If you have $1 million, how many people can you help? And if your mindset is helping people, serving others, your goal should be able to make as much money as possible so that you can help more people.
And do you find that that's pretty common when you drill down? Is it people, you say they want to be significant and they probably want some comfort, but is that what, if you could strip away the sort of the fear and the negativity of being in debt or not being wealthy, people just want to do more for others, but they're maybe closed in and can't? Yeah,
I think it's self-preservation because they either, in some ways, they don't want to admit they have the capacity to do more because they're comfortable.
Sure.
And in some ways, no one's ever taught them how to dream, right? I mean, I think we, as like I was saying before, as kids, we dream massively, but then life beats us up.
Right.
And we shrink our dreams into the number that's on our paycheck.
Right.
I can't afford to dream.
Interesting way to put it, but yeah.
Right? It's been referred to as the 40-40-40 club. Right? People that work 40 hours a week for 40 years of their life to retire on 40% of less of what they can't afford to live on today. There's a lot of people in that club. It's not a great club.
I think, isn't that the majority of people in a certain age bracket in Canada are looking at that?
Well, there's a really awesome book called The 10 Things Revenue Canada Doesn't Want You to Know. And in that book, they refer to a statistic that came out in about 2000, it was in the early 2000s, from Stats Canada, where they interviewed a whole bunch of different people, different ages, different demographics, all that stuff. And they realized that 91% of Canadians are in a collision course to fail in retirement.
Right, that was you that told me that when we met. 91%.
91%. Now, this was in the early 2000s, though.
Okay. I'm sure it's gotten better.
Yeah, exactly, right? So let's think about the way it was 22 years ago.
Okay.
In 2000, the household debt ratio was 1-to-1.
Okay.
Which means for every dollar of disposable income going into household, that's after-tax income,
okay,
$1 was owed in debt.
Okay, so
people are just getting by.
Yikes. Okay.
As of September of this year, you know what the household debt ratio is?
Oh, can I guess? 5-to-1? 4-to-1?
$1.80.
Okay. So it's not extreme, but
not that extreme, but still.
You see where we're going.
Yeah. So for every dollar going in, $1.80 is owed in debt in an average Canadian household right now.
Okay.
which means we're spending more on debt than we're bringing in. We're actually living off of debt. We're actually using debt to pay off debt.
Oof.
Right? And once you start that cycle, it's a difficult cycle to get out of.
Right.
Now let's think of what happened in the last few years, like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Throw in the pandemic, throw in everyone staying at home and maybe working at home, throw in that CERB that now everyone's freaking out about because they have to pay taxes on. What do you think is happening now, right? It's only getting worse and worse and worse, right?
And it's very easy to get in debt, right?
It is. It's easy, right? Almost anyone can go to a bank right now and get a credit card, right? It's like, if you go to a bank and you get a loan for something, it's like almost before you even get home, there's a credit card in the mail. Like, hey, we just gave you a loan, but here's a high interest credit card.
Right.
Please spend more money.
Yeah.
Okay. It's money you don't have, though, right? Now, it's not to say that credit is bad.
No,
there's really
great.
good debt out there, right? But there's bad debt. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to separate good debt from bad debt, right? And the bad debt you want to get rid of as quickly as possible.
And what would that be? Like just high
interest
debt?
credit cards,
Okay.
stuff like that, right?
Sure.
One of the things that, when we talk to our clients, I talk to a lot of people like, I want to pay my house off really quick.
Right.
Right. Well, if interest rates keep going up, that's a really good plan. But think of it this way. If you hold off investing in your future, so investing for your retirement, by putting extra money on your mortgage, and maybe you pay off your mortgage instead of 20 years, you pay it off in 17 years. And then you invest from 17 years to 25 years, you'll have a certain amount of money.
Right.
But there's a really interesting little thing called compound interest. So you're only allowing your money to compound for 8 years. Whereas if you would have started investing from square one instead of putting that extra money on your house when interest rates are low, right? And you let that money compound over time, by the time you get to that 25 years, your house is still paid off. In both scenarios, your house is paid off after 25 years.
Right.
It's just let time work for you, compound interest work for you, and now you're going to have significantly more money in the bank for your retirement and still have a paid off house.
Right.
But I think people don't take the time to crunch the numbers,
Right.
which is where we come in. We say, hey, let's crunch the numbers together, right? Educate you, share information, because depending on certain circumstances, that might not be the best plan the second way.
Right.
Everyone's different.
Sure.
This is not a one-size-fits-all cure. It's not the way it works. But it's, that vision to be able to look at things and take guidance from trusted people, right? Not just strangers on the internet.
And there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about, the difference, I suppose, between being a police officer, shift work, very regimented life, I would think, to now a fairly entrepreneurial life, it seems like. Was that a tough transition to make?
That was a huge mindset shift.
Right.
When my entire life I had been an employee, right? Like when I was growing up, it was actually okay for 9-year-olds to get a job and work. Oh. So I started working at a very young age.
Okay.
But I'd always been an employee. Always been an employee. Then moving into this industry, it was an incredible wake up because I had to think differently. I couldn't think like an employee anymore.
Right.
So being an entrepreneur is a double-edged sword.
Yep.
Because as an entrepreneur, you get control of your time. The other edge of the sword is you get control of your time.
Right, which can be hell on earth if you're not ready for it, right?
Right, because you think, I'll do that tomorrow. I got the day off. I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to, right? Where, I think the thought of an entrepreneur is, if I work harder at the beginning, I'll be able to not work at the end. Whereas as an employee, you're going to work every day until you retire.
At a steady pace.
For 30, 40 years, right?
Yep.
But as an entrepreneur, I was thinking, I worked bloody hard as a cop, right? Like, we were in the SWAT team, we were in the gym a couple hours before our shift, working out.
Yeah.
Our training was very, very difficult. The missions we went on, obviously, were pretty significant and some of them extremely serious. You're under strain 24/7. You're working shift work. The stress of the job affects you, emotionally, affects you mentally, but also affects you physically, because stress is one of the worst things for our health.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even more than radio waves and eating junk food.
Sure.
You cut stress out of your life, and you will significantly impact your health and wellness. Right.
Big time.
One of the biggest stresses people have is money stress.
Yeah.
right?
And it's like a constant weighing
Yeah.
stress, right? That yeah.
And so, that was my first hurdle, is knowing that, okay, as an entrepreneur, I have control of my time, but it means I need to do something with my time, something productive, something that's going to move me forward.
Right.
And for me, it took me a little while until I finally started listening to people who knew better, because, being an ex-SWAT guy, we're supposed to have all the answers. We're supposed to know everything. And so I thought I knew everything. Right? Until I realized, okay, I don't know everything. Time to listen to other people. Until I actually sat down and someone said, listen, you need to get a calendar and you need to use your calendar, but your calendar has to run your time. You don't run your calendar.
Okay.
So Sunday night every week, I go through my entire calendar, right? I make sure it's filled up with the things I need to do, but it's not just business stuff. I put my personal stuff in there as well.
Nice.
Right? Spending time with family, my morning routine. I have a morning routine every day. Make sure that's in there. Time to reach out to my team, time to talk to other agents, time to build the business, right? All that sort of stuff. And then every day, I just open up my calendar, like, what are we doing today? Right?
Easy.
And it's even easier because my amazing wife actually runs my calendar. So
I like that part.
right? It's like, okay, I open up my calendar. Okay, great. Oh, right on. We have lunch today. Awesome. Right?
Yeah.
Great. But then my calendar tells me what to do. And if you think about it from a perspective of an employee, someone's always telling you what to do. So one of the easiest ways to become an entrepreneur is to let your calendar tell you what to do. Your boss is your calendar.
Nice. But now you're sort of your own boss through the calendar, but it's this device that
that replaces that boss that some people really need to keep them focused.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that's great. I love that Sunday morning. I sit down and do the same thing. And I guess what would you say to someone who says, well, this feels like you're being too analytic with life? Like, do you build in free time? Like,
Oh yeah. And I heard someone one day say, you should have, you should color code everything in your book,
big
right?
time.
One color for business, personal, health, lunch, whatever. And there should be no white spaces in your calendar. And I'm like,
I don't know.
and then so we went down to Calgary to sit with one of the senior partners down there for a day.
Okay.
Because I'm always looking to learn from other people, right? And I talked to him about this, and he's very successful.
Okay.
And he said, "What? White? Yeah. Look, I got lots of white spots in here, right? But whatever is in my calendar, I'm faithful to."
Nice.
So yeah, you have white spots. Like, man, life is meant to be lived. You're not going to be that regimented.
Right.
But just make sure that you're following that calendar. And every business, everything has a certain set of numbers to it. And so if you know what your numbers are, you know what your goals are, you have a clear vision, you can back engineer a plan to know every day, if I accomplish these goals, I will get to my goal at a certain time.
Right.
And so that relieves stress. Be like, hey, I know I have to make this many phone calls. I have to talk to this many people. I have to help these many families this week. If I do that, I'm on track.
Right. And you feel good.
And you feel good.
Now you don't strike me as a guy who's ever, or maybe you have, but any kind of anxiety. Like for me, my anxiety can get out of control, and it's this yap about you haven't done things. Now, as soon as so then sometimes I build the goals, or I break the goals down to so small where it's like, just get up and walk over there and start doing that.
Yeah.
And then really you can build from there to like a 10-year goal. Is that, I guess I'd ask, what I'm trying to ask is, do you sometimes have to break those goals down even smaller to just sort of, I guess, keep yourself engaged with that life? Or
Yeah, I think at the beginning it's important to do that. To make very small, finite goals, because they are more attainable. It's more realistic for your brain to
Right.
figure it out until you get in a habit. It's one of those things, once you start getting into the habit, I think science says it takes about 30 days to create a habit, right?
Okay.
So just be very, very diligent for 30 days, and those activities will become a habit, right? But at the beginning, I think it is, like you said, really important to, like one of the stories I love is a story of a gentleman who wanted to start working out and get healthy.
Okay.
So he made a habit of just going to the gym every day. Didn't even work out.
Oh, really? Just went there.
Habit of going there.
It's crazy.
Oh, if you're in the gym every day, sooner or later you're going to pick up a weight.
Yeah, you might jump on a treadmill and
right?
Yeah.
And then that progressed to 5 minutes, progressed to 10 minutes, and then as it started progressing, it started progress exponentially because you're like, okay, now I feel good. Oh, I'm going to stay a little bit longer. I'm going to stay a little bit longer. Right? And in a year, he lost, I can't even remember the numbers, some outrageous amount of weight. He was in great health. All his physiological numbers were significantly better, all that stuff. But it started with creating a habit of just driving to the gym.
Wow.
That's it.
Just start.
Just start. Right? Too many people are waiting for the perfect time. It'll never happen if you're waiting for the perfect time. There's always going to be something to get in your way.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there is something that tells us there's the perfect time to start. There's the perfect place to be that I'm not there, but there is something about just finding in yourself that motivation to just take a step, right?
Yeah, and it's not easy. I mean, we can sit here and talk about it all we want, right? Sure. Maybe we've seen some success. We've gotten through certain barriers, but that doesn't mean that it was easy. No. And it's an ongoing process. There are still mornings where I wake up and it's like, okay, I got to do my morning 5. I really don't feel like doing this. Oh,
what is that?
My morning 5?
Yeah.
First thing I do is I write in my gratitude journal.
Nice.
Every morning. I read affirmations.
Okay.
Right? I do my goals. I go over all my goals for the day. I look at my calendar and make sure I've got all of my essential work done to build my business every day. And then my last thing is actually in the evening. In the evening, I reread my goals and I pre-plan my next day. Right?
Every morning.
So every morning, I read 10 pages of a good book. At least 10 pages of a good book.
Nice.
Right?
Gets the brain lubed up, so to speak.
Not Harry Potter, but like like someone that's gonna build me personally, right?
Get you motivated, get you in the headspace. Okay.
And I say this all the time, people will go to work to a job they hate and spend 8, 10, 12 hours working for someone else to make another entrepreneur wealthy while they're basically getting paid the absolute minimum that entrepreneur can pay them to keep them around.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
But they won't spend a half an hour on themselves in the morning.
Yeah.
You're worth it.
Big time. And I would say my morning routine has done the same thing.
What do you do?
First thing, get up, hydrate, got to get like a liter or 750 mil water.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, 15, 20 minutes.
Get active.
I say the walk in the water, the digestion then is, if you know what I'm saying. Then come home, write in that journal. And my journal is more about just what I did the day before.
Okay.
And then I have been getting into prayer lately, not in a Christian sense, but just outside, speaking, manifesting into the universe.
I love it.
If the neighbor saw it, he'd think I was crazy. But and then it's like, I've done so much, and it's 6 in the morning, you know, and then you're just juiced up to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're more present in your own life. You're a part of your own game then. You're in the game. You're not sitting on the sideline watching your life go by.
Right.
You're actually on the field. You're in the game now. Right?
You're in the game. Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Self-Control, How to Build a Better Life. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my conversation with Vic Pipke. And it's got you thinking about setting goals and dreaming big. You know, surely we can't get to where we want to be if we don't see ourselves inching towards there daily. And I also hope that specifically time management and scheduling and a morning routine are things that if you're not practicing, you're open to practicing for yourself. And those are things, like I said, that I will speak about in a follow-up episode shortly to hopefully shed some light on why it's worked so well for me. In improving my life. Please stay tuned next week for part 2 of my conversation with Vic. He shares the story of his terrifying and life-altering injury and talks about the transition into a whole new career, a career that he himself would never have even understood at one time, and now he's become something of an expert. It's incredible how malleable we humans can be. And Vic also shares a lot more wisdom in part 2 as far as mindset and how we look at our life and how we see ourselves progressing to where we want to be. I think that's so crucially important. He also shares a couple pretty crazy stories as well along the way, so look out for that. And again, look out for my follow-up episode regarding time management and a morning routine. That's it. Until I speak with you again, please remember that better is possible.